Tainan Dalpra had a flawless performance at the latest NWO event. While we review this video, you're going to see that Tainan made literally zero mistakes in his performance. It starts about at the 1 minute mark where Tainan initiates the arm drag. He's in the classic single leg position after the arm drag, and as he gets to his feet, he switches the leg from his left arm to his right arm and uses his left arm to grab behind Troy's back. He then uses his right arm to pull Troy's leg straight upwards. Troy tries to extend his leg to at least retain half guard, but as they're going down, Tainan extends his right leg to avoid the half guard. He's able to pass to side control as they fall. When Tainan's legs are on the side of Troy, he brings his right arm out from between Troy's legs and quickly grabs for a body lock. Troy is using extended arms and bending his knee to try to retain guard, which is a very common response. Tainan switches his hips so it's facing towards the legs and uses his left knee to push Troy's right leg so his right knee is facing up. Then Tainan brings in his right leg and hip to block Troy's right leg from retaining guard. Now Troy still has extended arms at this point. Tainan grabs Troy's left wrist and pushes it off his head. This might not seem like a big deal, but it does bring Tainan a little bit closer to Troy's head. This time Tainan takes out his left arm and starts going for the crossface. Troy still has both frames, and technically he does have inside position. If Tainan loses control of Troy's head, he can technically bump into him and start retaining guard. Tainan probably feels like that this is going to happen, so he switches the crossface and grabs behind Troy's head, and then he uses his right arm to block Troy's right hip and starts swinging himself towards north-south. During the transition, Troy does his best to extend away and start recovering guard by inverting. And when you try to recover guard by inverting, you need an anchor on your legs to be able to swing yourself around to face your opponent again.
Now with your heel in place across your partner's neck, you have something to push against. And when you can push down, it's easier for you to bring your hips up off of the floor. Now from here, we just continue to rotate until we find ourselves back, open position with our partner ready to go.
But Tainan does a great job of hiding his shoulder so Troy's right foot doesn't have an anchor. Tainan uses his right hand to cup underneath Troy's head and he lifts his head. That forces Troy's hips to go onto the ground, and now Troy is unable to invert. And then Tainan starts settling into side control. Troy has his right elbow as a frame on Tainan's throat, which is keeping some pressure off. So Tainan uses his left hand to quickly push Troy's elbow up, and then he settles his head in. Troy is trying his best to frame and bump, trying to get his knee into Tainan's hip, but Tainan is keeping that pressure, and when he does feel like he's in danger that Troy might be able to get his knee in, he uses his left arm to grab Troy's left tricep so it's not touching the ground right now. That stops Troy from turning into Tainan. Tainan is able to use the crossface to push Troy's head to the right side. That is when he starts initiating the mount. Troy does a good move here and uses his knee to bump Tainan above him. That gives him a chance to invert again to retain his guard. But again, just like on the other side, Tainan does a good job of hiding his shoulder so Troy doesn't have an anchor for his foot. At this point, we're at a very similar position as we were on the other side, except this time, Tainan is able to smush Troy's arms down by switching his hips. That makes Troy's frames less effective, and Tainan is able to switch his left arm from the near hip to the far hip and brings his right arm for a crossface. This time, Tainan has full pressure on the crossface compared to before, and he's able to force Troy to face away from him. Troy knows that if his body and his legs are facing the same way that his head is facing, that Tainan is going to be able to mount him. So he's doing everything in his power to shrimp away to keep his hips facing up rather than the right side. And in a somewhat desperate move to get Tainan off of him, Troy uses his right elbow to lift on Tainan's throat. Normally you do this when you have your hand on your opponent's trap and then you flare your elbow out to relieve some pressure, but Troy's left hand is currently trapped. Tainan uses that leverage to push his elbow up, and now he is trapped almost in an arm triangle position. Troy recognizes the arm triangle and yanks his right arm out and puts it flat on the mat to avoid the arm triangle. Now Tainan has full pressure on the crossface. He's forcing Troy's hips to face away from him. Now he starts bringing that knee in to transition into mount. Now notice that Tainan doesn't go immediately into mount. He first places his left knee to Troy's right hip. He has Troy's right arm extended, and when he's able to grab his right elbow with his left arm, that is when he completes the mount transition. He keeps pressure down with his left shoulder to keep Troy in place, and now he's able to work with the right side of his body. So you can see the starting position that Troy is doing everything he can to keep his elbow facing down. When you're being mounted, you never want your elbows flared up. That's when problems start happening. So Tainan crunches his right side so he's able to get his elbow under Troy's left elbow, and once he's able to get on the inside of the elbow, he grabs Troy's left trap. He's going to use that as an anchor point. He's going to use his right hip and his right shoulder and use it like a car jack to slowly bring Troy's left elbow further and further up. Now notice how Tainan goes back to his left hip. So that allows him to have more leeway on his right side, and he's able to let go of the trap and start working towards grabbing Troy's head. And then again, he uses that car jack motion to bring Troy's head a little bit higher, and now he's at a point where he's able to actually grab Troy's head with his right hand. Both of Troy's elbows are basically together, his hands are completely above him, and this is a horrible position to be in. Tainan needs to maintain control, watch for Troy to explode, and to keep that pressure. So Troy is squirming around trying to do everything he can to get out of this position, and Tainan is being very patient, making micro adjustments to keep the position, and continues to put that pressure forward all the way up to the point where Troy's hands are actually touching the mat now. This is the picture perfect situation that you want to be in when you're in mount position. As soon as Troy lifts his feet off the mat where he isn't able to bump, that is when Tainan transitions into one of the tightest S mounts I have ever seen in my life. And now he needs to figure out the grip situation. He's actually attacking the lower arm, which is going to take a little bit more effort to finish. You can see that he grabs Troy's left wrist, opens it up very slightly to allow Tainan's right arm to weave through. Troy's left arm now feels isolated, so he's trying to get his hand back on the inside position. So he brings his left hand back inside. As he does that, Tainan is able to cover up any sort of defense by bringing his upper body down and making sure that Troy's left elbow is behind Tainan's right armpit. Tainan transitions by cupping Troy's elbow so it stays in place and it's unable to help defend the armbar. Tainan uses his left arm to start attacking Troy's right hand. When Troy goes to try to stack him, that's when Tainan throws up his other leg across his head and he's able to go 2-on-1 on Troy's right arm and get the armbar. I know that was a little bit difficult to see, so we're gonna fast forward here to the highlight section. So you can see from this different angle, we're in this position where Tainan is cupping Troy's left elbow and he's attacking his right arm. And because Troy's left arm is tucked by Tainan's right hip, it's trapped there. And so he has no ability to have that arm help defend his right arm. That allows Tainan to go 2-on-1 on Troy's wrist, and it's an easy tap from there. These are some of my favorite matches to watch because it's not like Troy Russell is bad at jiu-jitsu. It just really goes to showcase how good Tainan actually is. There were a lot of positions where Troy was doing the right things, trying to get out, keeping good frames, but Tainan literally made no mistakes. This was a flawless victory in the highest sense, and I cannot wait for another Tainan match. This guy is an absolute beast. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. See you in the next video.